Just a reminder to vote in this week's Locals poll, where you decide what deck I take to Locals every single week. Without any further ado, I hope you enjoyed the video. What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel, and today we have the deck for the profile that we took to Locals last week, being Igknights. We didn't run an official tournament due to the college graduation being the next day. They wanted to close up shop early, give the graduating seniors some time to prepare, go out to dinner, things of that nature. And so we just hung out for an hour or two, mostly traded, but I did squeeze in one match with this deck. More on that later, though. Here's what it looks like on paper, then we'll get to the card by card. Okay, so we're actually going to cover the effect monsters first, then we'll get to the normal monsters. So the two non-pendulum effect monsters that we run are Igknight Champion and Igknight Lancer. So this is monster removal and spell trap removal, respectively. Basically, you summon these off of some of your other effects. You don't want to actually draw them. You want to summon them from the deck. And that's really about all to say about those. Next, 3 copies of Ignis Phoenix, the Draco Slayer. So its effect says that it's always treated as an Igknight card, which makes it very searchable in the deck. This is one of the cards you can use to special summon either your Lancer or Champion by popping it and then special summoning it as a tuner from the deck. So yeah, that's one of those. Again, it's just a very straightforward kind of deck. You pop your own cards, special summon something as a tuner, go into a synchro of choice, or you can just try to OTK with all your normal monsters. And speaking of normal monsters, so I'm actually going to cover a lot of these at once because they all have the exact same pendulum effect. So we have 2 Gallant, 2 Veteran, 3 Cavalier, and 1 Margrave. So Gallant and Cavalier are a level 6 and a level 5 with 2100 and 2400 respectively. These are used to try to just push for more damage. They're also both scale 2s. Then you've got Veteran and Margrave. These are your more high defense stat Igknights. And they're both scale 7s. And like I mentioned earlier, they all have the same pendulum effect, where if you have another Igknight card in your pendulum zone, which does include this guy because of his continuous effect, you can destroy both cards in your scales to search, which then, of course, will trigger Ignis Phoenix effect to get another Igknight from the deck, treat it as a tuner, yada yada yada. I think you're kind of see where this is going. Next, 3 copies of Templar, 2 Paladin, 2 Crusader, and 1 Squire. So again, these 2 are sort of your more high attack power guys, although these are 2 and 7. Then these are also 2/7, but they have higher defense stats. But these guys are mainly going to be used for your other monsters, whether you're going into a Link monster or your Synchro monster. These guys usually aren't going to stay on the field that long, as opposed to something like Margrave or Gallant, Cavalier, something like that. So yeah, that's basically it for the monsters. Moving on to the spells and traps. First, we're going to cover the spells that actually reference Igknights directly. So the first one is Igknight Reload. So this is a quick play spell where you reveal any number of pendulum monsters in your hand and shuffle them into the deck, then draw that many cards plus 1. And I actually used this in as my opening play in the first game against Witchcrafters. We ended up winning that game. I shuffled back 4 monsters to draw 5 cards, and yeah. So that was really nice, just being able to dig for whatever you want, basically. Next is going to be 2 copies of Igknight's Unite. This functions very similarly to something like Quick Launch. You target an Igknight card you control and destroy it, and if you do, special summon an Igknight monster from your deck. So basically, and this even works with this, you can activate Reload and chain Unite to destroy the reload because it says an Igknight card. So you can also use this to pop something in your Pendulum Scale. So if you have an Ignis Phoenix in your Pendulum Scale, you can pop that. So yeah, just, you know, again, focusing on popping their own stuff to get more resources, trying to OTK or break boards. Next, the final Igknight specific card is Ignition Phoenix. So it gives all Igknights 300 attack and defense, but the main thing that you want to run this for is because once per turn you can target an Igknight card you control, destroy it, and if you do, add an Igknight from your deck to your hand. So basically, you can pop any Igknight card on your field to search any other Igknight card that you want. So again, this is really good with Ignis Phoenix. This can help search for things like Reload or Unite, or just another monster. So yeah. Next, moving into some of the more generic spells, I'm running 2 Heart of the Underdog. So, since the majority of the monsters are normal monsters, I decided to utilize this card. I'm running 2 just because I didn't want to run 3 mainly. I mean, just because I didn't want to have just like this in my hand, you know, like maybe 1 monster, 2 copies of this, because then I probably won't survive that long, you know. And so this is just kind of like a win more card, I guess you could say, because if you don't break the board and OTK them, or assuming you don't do that, then you can just draw more cards. So it's just kind of a win more card. Also running 2 copies of Unexpected Die. So I'm running 2 of this because we already have the Unite. We've got Reload to shuffle a bunch back into the deck. So I think just running 2 is a nice balance, especially since we can only activate this since when we have no monsters. So I think just running 2 of it will make it to where we don't draw it too often where we can't use it, if that makes sense. I am running 1 Pot of Riches as well. So since the Igknights destroy themselves to search, you know, while they're in the scale, I figured I could use this card to kind of recycle my resources a little bit. So I shuffle 3 Pendulum monsters back into the deck that are either in my face-up extra deck or in my graveyard to draw 2. The only drawback is that I can only special summon through Pendulum Summon during the entire turn that I use this card. So it's not even after I resolve it. If I do anything besides, or anything that's not a Pendulum Summon, and then try to use this, I can't use this. So that is a little bit of a drawback, but the recyclability for the resources is kind of nice. So I think it's worth it, just as a one of. Although if you did want to not run Pot of Riches, if I ever did decide to cut it, I'd bump Heart of the Underdog to 3 just for that draw power. But I'm going to stick with the Pot of Riches for now, because I like being able to recycle the Pendulum monsters back into the deck for later use. Then going to some of our more limited spells. Terraforming, Search the Field spell. Reasoning, because there are a bunch of different levels. And Reinforcement of the Army, because they are all warriors. Next, moving on to the trap cards. I'm running 1 Expendable Die, which allows us to tribute a warrior, target a card on the field, pop it, and then draw a card. So this is just like for some interruption. Just being able to, you know, disrupt my opponent's plays, draw a card, and then try to OTK them the next turn. So it's a nice little spot of disruption if I have to go first, or if I'm unable to OTK. And then the final card in the deck, the mystery card that won me the match, because I flipped it up in games 1 and 3 against Witchcrafter is Tyrant's Throes. Someone in the locals poll, in the comments, they guessed what this card was, and they guessed Heatwave, which was actually a very good guess. Like, that's actually not a bad guess at all. I had actually considered Heatwave when beefing up this deck, but I decided to go with Tyrant's Throes because one, usually not a lot of decks nowadays run spell and trap removal, so this sticking on the field was, it's got a pretty decent chance of it. And then I tribute 2 normal monsters that are not tokens to make it to where neither player can normal or special summon effect monsters, period. So with Heatwave, I would have to keep drawing additional copies in order to keep stunning out my opponent. But with Tyrant's Throes, as long as it stays face up on the field, they can't summon effect monsters. Now, it does affect me as well. So once we get to the extra deck, it'll kind of hurt. But if I'm using this play instead of the extra deck plays, I basically have the resources already to where I don't have to worry about that. I just basically super simplify the game state to where I just beat them down with normal monsters. And it worked. So, yeah. Moving on to the extra deck. So if you actually noticed from way back when, the original build of this deck, it didn't have an extra deck. It was just a 100% pure Igknight normal OTK. But I decided to integrate the extra deck into it, mainly because of Ignis Phoenix's effect. When it special summons a monster from the deck, it is treated the monster that's summoned is treated as a tuner. And so previously I was just kind of ignoring that entire part of the deck. And I was just like, wait a minute, I am missing out. Because I just never found anything I really wanted to run. But then the more I thought about it, the ideas came to me, so yeah, here it is. First, 3 copies of Doolittle Chimera. This, of course, just pumps up all fires by 500, and then can recycle something from the grave when it gets destroyed. And it also opens up an extra zone for us to pendulum summon to from the extra deck. So that part is very much welcome. And basically the rest of the extra deck is just generic fire synchros that no one really seems to play that much. So I wanted to give them a chance to shine. So first one is Vulcan the Divine. It's a level 6. So basically you would make this with either any combination of Crusader and what's the other one? Squire, I think. Yeah, Crusader and Squire. One of them being treated as a tuner off of Ignis Phoenix, and basically it's a double bounce on synchro summon, so that's kind of nice. Next is Rampaging Smash Tank Rhino Saber. So basically, if I have a bunch of cards in hand and I just want to summon a really, really big guy, then I go for him. Now, I will say, though, that there are usually only 2 synchros that you're synchro summoning, and we'll get to those in a minute. Most of these guys, and some of the other ones, the option is there if you need it, but they're largely just to fill up space. Next, I am running one Gaia Blaze Force of the Sun because I think it looks cool. And again, it's just to take up space. So I'm actually going to talk about the next 2 together because these are, in most cases, the only synchro monsters you're going to actually summon in a game. Unless you're going out of your way to do something else. But this is basically the 2 monsters I'm about to cover. These are basically the only synchro monsters that you're going to summon. And one of them is one of my favorite synchro monsters, period, Crimson Blader. And then the other is Ignister Prominence, the Blasting Draco Slayer. So these both are level 8s. These are the ones that you're going to actually be trying to summon, depending on the board state, because these are the best ones. So Crimson Blader, when it destroys an opponent's monster by battle, it makes it to where your opponent can't special summon, or normal or special summon level 5 or higher monsters during their next turn. So that's really nice. And then Ignister Prominence. It allows us to special summon the Ignis Phoenix from our deck in defense position, with the only drawback being it can't be used as material for a synchro summon. And then we can also target a pendulum monster that's on our field, whether it's treated as a monster or in the pendulum zone, destroy it, and then non-target shuffle something back into the deck. So basically, we can help break boards and stun out our opponent with these two synchros. Very, very nice. And like I said, those two, Crimson Blader and Ignister Prominence, those are really the only ones you're going to be summoning. I mean, we also do have 2 copies of Vermilion Dragon Mech if we ever want or must summon a level 9. So basically, the game plan is to summon either Crimson Blader or Ignister Prominence. But if like, let's just say the game is really, really back and forth, and we're running out of level 4s, we can go into those other options, like the level 6 and the level 7 and the 9, in order to try to win the game. But the game plan is those 2 level 8s. That's the game plan. That's what you're doing. So, but yeah, this is just it's a pretty straightforward deck. You draw a lot of cards, pop a lot of cards, summon a lot of cards, and try to either stun out your opponent with Tyrant's Throws if you draw it, or with Crimson Blader if they're running a bunch of high-level monsters, or you can just try to pick their board apart with the Ignister Prominence. So I hope you enjoyed the deck profile. Like I said, very simple. The deck's also really, really fun because, you know, like I said, you're drawing a lot of cards and everything. Oh, hi, Chester. But yeah, you're drawing a lot of cards, summoning a lot of cards, so it's a really fun deck. So I hope you enjoyed. Like, subscribe to the locals poll, all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys next time.